Fear doesn't knock on your door. It slips through the cracks of your comfort. I want you to picture something with me. It's late. The world outside is quiet. Your phone is silent, and nobody's calling your name. It's just you and that dream you keep pushing further into the tomorrow you're building out of excuses. In that silence, something whispers. Not motivation, not inspiration, but fear. That soft voice in the back of your mind telling you, you're not ready. You're not enough. What if you fail? Comment below. What fear has been whispering inside your mind lately? In that moment, before you take a step, before you breathe life into your vision, fear grabs you by the collar. It doesn't have to scream. It knows you'll listen to the whisper. And isn't it wild how fear can silence genius? How doubt can suffocate destiny? How a single moment of hesitation can steal decades of potential? I've seen people, brilliant, passionate, gifted individuals, fold under the weight of possibilities that never revealed themselves. Not because they lack talent, but because fear convinced them to stop trying. And the truth is, fear is patient. It sits at the doorway of your ambition, waiting for the slightest crack in your confidence. Denzel Washington once said, "If you don't fail, you're not even trying." That's not a slogan. That's a warning. Because fear feeds off what you don't confront. And most of us, we've built entire lives around avoiding the discomfort of pursuit. We wake up, work, pay bills, sleep, repeat. We call it routine, but deep down it's survival. Survival from the weight of who we could become. I want you to understand something powerful. Fear is not always loud. Sometimes it's polite. It keeps you realistic. It tells you to wait until Monday. It makes procrastination feel productive. It disguises itself as logic, as responsibility, as timing. But underneath every excuse is the same root. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of judgment. Let me ask you something. How many dreams have died quietly inside people who never had the courage to begin? How many ideas are rotting because someone feared being misunderstood? How many artists, entrepreneurs, innovators never saw daylight because their fear outvoted their faith? See, fear doesn't always destroy you quickly. Sometimes it destroys you slowly. It erodes your confidence grain by grain. It wears down your imagination day by day. It steals your urgency until one day you wake up realizing you've wasted years defending a comfort zone that never cared about you. And let me be honest with you. Fear has style. It knows how to dress. It wears the suit of perfectionism, the mask of ambition without action. It hides inside that voice that says, just one more day, just one more plan, just one more reason. But reasons are just decorated excuses, waiting to become regrets. Look at every person who's ever achieved greatness. Every one of them had fear sitting beside them like a shadow. The only difference? They moved anyway. They spoke anyway. They tried anyway. Greatness isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else matters more. Right now, as you're listening, something inside you is stirring. Not because I'm speaking to you, but because you're finally hearing yourself. That version of you behind the fear. The one that wants to break through the walls you built around your own potential. And what's waiting on the other side of your fear? Possibility. Purpose. A version of you that fear can't recognize, because fear can't survive in someone who's willing to act despite its voice. So before we move ahead, remember this. Fear is loudest right before your breakthrough. If you feel the pressure, the trembling, the doubt, that's a signal, not a stop sign. And as we go into this journey, I want you to carry a single thought. You either own your fear, or your fear will own you. Take a breath. We're just getting started. The most dangerous battles are the ones nobody sees. You see, when we talk about fear, most people imagine something obvious. Shaking hands, racing heartbeats, cold sweats before stepping on a stage. But the truth? The real struggle lives much deeper. It's quiet, invisible, internal. And if we're honest, we rarely ever confess it. Before the world ever hears your voice, you must first battle the one inside your head. Comment below. What silent battle are you fighting right now? There's a war happening right beneath your confidence, where ambition collides with doubt. And that hidden resistance, that inner friction, is where dreams either ignite or suffocate. Think about how many times you planned something big, a business idea, a gym routine, a creative project. You felt inspired, energized. Then you woke up the next morning and suddenly the fire was gone. Not because the dream changed, but because resistance whispered, "Not today." Resistance is sneaky. It doesn't attack your plan, it attacks your identity. It says, "You're not the type of person who can do this. People like you don't succeed like that. Who do you think you are?" And then you start negotiating with fear. You trade your power for comfort. You bury your hunger under distractions, scrolling, Netflix binges, temporary pleasures that numb the ache of an unpursued destiny. Denzel Washington once said, "Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship." And he was right. Hardship sharpens you. Pain teaches you. But comfort? Comfort lulls you to sleep while your dreams slowly evaporate. Your hidden struggle isn't the external world telling you no. It's the internal world telling you not yet. But let me tell you something the world doesn't teach. Fear is never more convincing than right before your leap. That's why some of the greatest victims of potential look just like you and me. People who thought they had time. People who believed their future was guaranteed. There's a voice inside that says, "Wait until you're more confident. Wait until you're financially stable. Wait until you're less tired." But here's the harsh truth. You don't get confidence before you act. Confidence is a side effect of doing what scares you. This hidden resistance is psychological quicksand. The more you hesitate, the harder it becomes to move. The longer you wait, the heavier your fear becomes. And soon, inaction becomes your identity. You're no longer someone who hasn't started yet. You become someone who simply doesn't. Fear loves that transformation. When you look around, you see people living half-lives. They smile on the outside, but inside they're exhausted from constantly arguing with their own potential. This is why some folks are irritable, angry, or depressed, because somewhere within them, a giant is being chained daily. And here's the kicker. Nobody sees this struggle. You still laugh. You still go to work. You still pay bills. But inside, you are negotiating with your own greatness. And every time you surrender to fear, you deposit another brick in the wall that separates you from your future. Listen closely. Your greatest opponent will always be the voice that tells you to stay who you are. And that voice speaks with authority, doesn't it? It sounds familiar, comfortable. It sounds like you. But that's the trap. Fear is impersonating your intuition. It's wearing your tone, your language, your insecurities like a disguise. So how do we overcome this hidden resistance? You don't overcome it by trying to silence fear. You overcome it by acting louder than it. Because fear doesn't disappear when you wait. It disappears when you move. Denzel believes, and I believe, that destiny is reserved for those who are willing to feel afraid and act anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is mastery over it. This internal war is the price of admission to your purpose. You will feel discomfort. Doubt will visit you. Resistance will grab your ankle every time you take a step forward. But resistance is only proof that you're walking in the right direction. And as we transition to the next section, I want you to carry this truth with you. Fear is the guard dog of your destiny. If it's barking, it means something valuable is behind the door. Now the question becomes, will you walk through it? Fear doesn't stop you from doing the thing. It stops you from even trying. There's a trap, silent, subtle, brilliantly camouflaged, that most people fall into without ever noticing. It's not fear of failure. It's not fear of judgment. It's something much more cunning. It's the belief that you must feel ready before you move. Comment below. Have you ever waited to feel ready before starting something? This belief is deadly, because readiness isn't an emotion, it's a decision. And yet, millions of dreams are waiting on a feeling that will never arrive. You see, fear's greatest trick is postponement. It convinces you that you should wait for more confidence, more clarity, more time, more resources, more signs. But here's the truth nobody wants to accept. Action creates clarity. Execution creates confidence. Movement creates momentum. Yet most people stand still, paralyzed by the illusion that if they just think harder, if they just plan better, if they just wait longer, they'll find courage like a gift wrapped on their doorstep. It doesn't come. Fear thrives in stillness, in hesitation, in rumination. The longer you sit with it, the stronger it grows roots. And those roots, they're doubts, excuses, distractions, procrastination disguised as preparation. This is the core trap. People wait to feel courageous before they act, when courage is what you earn after you act. I want you to imagine a lion in a cage. Huge, powerful, beautiful, but caged. Over time, that lion forgets the jungle. It begins to believe the cage is where it belongs. It paces back and forth, wearing a path into the ground, believing the bars are there for its safety. That lion is us. Every fear we obey builds a bar on our cage. Every dream we dismiss paints another stripe on the floor. We become domesticated by doubt. But here's where psychology hits hard. Your brain is wired to protect you, not empower you. Fear is biological. Dreams are spiritual. One comes from survival. One comes from purpose. And when they collide, most people choose survival. Denzel Washington once said, "Without commitment, you'll never start. But more importantly, without consistency, you'll never finish." And that's the second half of the trap. Even if you overcome the initial fear and take that first step, resistance returns with a new disguise: inconsistency. It whispers, "It's okay to skip today. You deserve rest. No one's watching anyway." But let me tell you something. The dream was never about being seen by the world. It was about not going blind to yourself. Fear wants you comfortable, because comfort is predictable, and predictability is safe, but only at first. Over time, comfort becomes a prison. Familiarity becomes a cage. And suddenly, years go by, and you realize you never truly lived. The trap is not fear itself. The trap is believing fear's voice is your voice. Fear says, "What if you fail?" Faith says, "What if you succeed?" Fear says, "Play small." Faith says, "Grow tall." Fear says, "Stay hidden." Faith says, "Shine anyway." And the funny thing? Fear doesn't have to be defeated permanently. It just has to be ignored long enough for action to take the wheel. Because once action drives, courage rides shotgun. So understand this. You will never feel ready. You will never feel confident first. You will never have perfect circumstances. Those are fantasies. Life rewards those who move while afraid. Those who speak while their voice shakes. Those who step while their knees tremble. Fear isn't the enemy. Waiting on a fantasy feeling is. And as we transition to the next chapter, I want you to reflect on one simple question. How much longer will you wait for a feeling before you start living your purpose? Take a breath. Your breakthrough begins with motion. Your life doesn't change when you get more time. It changes when you get more courage. There comes a moment in every journey, quiet, unannounced, subtle, when something shifts. It's not dramatic. It's not accompanied by fireworks or applause. It's a whisper of truth that cuts through the noise of fear. And for many people, that whisper arrives after years of running in circles. Comment below. Have you ever had a moment where a single realization changed everything for you? For most of my life, I believed fear was a problem to solve, a dragon to slay, a barrier to break. And I kept waiting for the day I wouldn't feel afraid. I kept thinking, one day I'll be fearless. One day I'll wake up different. But that day never came. Then I heard something simple, something old, something true. Do it afraid. That phrase hit me like lightning. Not because I'd never heard it before, but because I had never understood it. We've been conditioned to think fear has to leave before we move. But fear doesn't leave. Courage simply becomes louder. This was my turning point perspective. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is the decision that fear will not dictate your choices. Denzel Washington once said something powerful. You pray for rain, you got to deal with the mud too. That's a part of it. In other words, you can't pray for growth and run from discomfort. You can't pray for strength and avoid struggle. You can't pray for courage and hide from fear. If you want the blessing, you have to embrace the burden that comes with it. And that perspective alone changes everything. Because suddenly, fear isn't a stop sign. Doubt isn't a verdict. Discomfort isn't a warning. They're all indicators of impact. See, fear doesn't show up when you're doing something insignificant. Fear shows up when destiny takes interest, when your life begins leaning toward expansion. Fear isn't proof that you're weak. Fear is proof that something inside you is growing too big for the life you're currently living. And that growth? It demands space. It demands discomfort. It demands action. But here's the key. Your perspective determines your experience. Most people see fear as an enemy. But what if fear is a compass? What if fear is pointing toward the very thing you're meant to conquer? Think about it. The things that scare you the most are often the things most aligned with your purpose. It's your soul whispering, "There's something here for you." Imagine looking at fear and asking, "What are you protecting me from? What are you teaching me? What strength will I earn by facing you?" Suddenly, fear becomes fuel. The moment you stop seeing fear as something to escape and instead something to experience, you become unstoppable. Because now, every tremble, every hesitation, every anxious breath becomes proof you're on the right path. And the turning point perspective? It's this. Fear isn't the wall. Fear is the doorway. Walk through it, and you redefine yourself. Walk through it, and you inherit a bigger life. Walk through it, and you begin to understand something only action can teach. You are capable of more than the scared version of you ever imagined. And I want you to feel this in your bones. Somewhere in the future, a version of you exists who is stronger, wiser, more confident, more fulfilled. And the only road that leads to them goes straight through the valley of fear. You can't go around it. You can't go above it. You can't avoid it. You go through it. When you embrace this perspective, fear loses its power. Because fear can only control those who believe fear means stop. But for the ones who understand fear means begin, life opens up in ways you could never imagine. So let this be the moment everything shifts. From now on, fear isn't a signal to freeze. Fear is a signal to move. Courage knocks softly. Fear roars. But both point to the same door. As we move to the next section, remember, your destiny isn't on the other side of comfort. It's on the other side of fear. There will come a day when your fear can no longer afford the rent in the house of your soul. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine something with me. It's years from now. You're sitting quietly, older, wiser, watching the sunset paint the sky with colors you can't quite name. It's peaceful, but as you breathe, you feel something tugging inside your chest. Not pain, not regret, but memory. A memory of the moments you were afraid. A memory of the choices you made. A memory of the doors you walked through or turn away from. Fear sits beside you in that moment, quiet, older, smaller, because fear ages too. And suddenly, you realize something heartbreaking. The only thing fear ever asked of you was your time. Not your talent. Not your greatness. Not your joy. Just time. Time hesitating. Time doubting. Time delaying. Because fear doesn't destroy you by force. It destroys you by permission. But listen carefully. Today is not that future day. Today, the paint on your destiny is still wet. Today, the ink in your story is still flowing. Today, you can still choose. Comment below. What is one fear you refuse to take with you into tomorrow? You see, the greatest tragedy isn't failing. It's looking back and realizing you never tried. Not because you couldn't, but because you wouldn't. Somewhere out there, right now, a version of you is living the life you once dreamed about. The only difference between you and them, they moved while they were afraid. Fear will wrap itself around your ankles like chains, whispering, "Stay here. It's safe." But safety is expensive when it costs you your purpose. And purpose will irritate you when ignored. Purpose will tug on your heart like a child begging to go outside. Purpose will not make peace with your comfort. Denzel Washington said it best. Without discipline and consistency, dreams are just dreams. Understand this. Fear is loudest right before your breakthrough. Doubt is strongest right before your elevation. Resistance is fiercest right before your transformation. The pressure you feel is not there to crush you. It's there to shape you. Zustand. Even if your knees tremble, even if your voice shakes, even if your heart thunders against your ribs like a drum of war. Walk anyway, because fear cannot follow someone who has decided to become more than their excuses. Picture the movie of your life. The scene is now. The music is rising. The camera is close on your face. Sweat, breath, fire in the eyes. The narrator, your future self, whispers, "This is where everything changed. Not tomorrow, not next month, not when things calm down. Now, fear will beg you to wait for the perfect moment. But perfection is procrastination wearing a tuxedo. Do it imperfect. Do it afraid. Do it anyway. Your future is calling, and courage is the price of admission." So let me leave you with this one cinematic question, one that echoes long after this video ends. When history looks back at your life, will fear be the author? Or will you? Drop a comment below and tell me. What is your moment of truth, and when will you take it? If you found value, inspiration, or fire in these words, like, comment, and share this message with someone you refuse to see lose to fear. And remember, as the screen fades to black, you are not born to live small. You are not designed to run scared. You are here to rise. This is your story. Now go write the ending. Fire, thank you for listening.